Good morning. Happy Monday. Happy Cesar Chavez Day. I am still going into work because I need to make money. But this morning, I noticed that there was a James Springer video in my feed that was less than 20 minutes long. Oh, excitement. Very first thing I want to address is that every state that I'm aware of has a policy of protecting the identities of minors in the criminal system. In California, they call it delinquents. They may call it other things in other places. You don't even go to a criminal proceeding, you go to a delinquency proceeding if you are a juvenile. So with that in mind, just remember, it is the policy of the courts to protect their identities. Having some bully with a camera demanding to put the face of every single person in that public, in quotes, space is it's just unreasonable to allow people like Freeman in there to view the kids in light of the policy that we have to protect the kids. I probably could have said that better, but my mind's wandering. So they say he can't come in and film, and he wants to see the magic piece of paper that says he can't film because in James's mind, judge's orders aren't effective until James has been served with them, and that's wrong. The judge's orders are effective in courthouses, period. They're effective. Men with guns, the men with guns that were in front of James, and yes, all authority revolves around the ability and willingness to use force and society's approval of the force being used. And I don't think society would shed a tear if those, I think they were sheriff's deputies, frog marched Springer out of there to protect the kids. Call me crazy. But the very first thing is, Supreme Court's ruled that we can have reasonable photography, whatever. Can't restrict the press. And that's hilarious because you can restrict the press. Press have been restricted a lot of times in a lot of places. Of course, he doesn't have a Supreme Court case to cite from, and he instead cites an oral argument. I think that was the Ninth Circuit. It's a DHS case where a couple guys had their camera equipment taken for filming border crossings. And what the judge is talking about is being arbitrary. Because remember, policies that are arbitrary and capricious, like you can film when we want and you can't film when we don't want, and there has to be some sort of a guideline. There has to be some kind of hard and fast rule that the sheriff can follow instead of just arbitrarily allowing some people to film and arbitrarily not allowing other people to film. That's what the judge was talking about. It's being arbitrary. But here they have a judge's order. It's not arbitrary. It's not whenever the sheriff feels like it. No filming is allowed. Now the guy at the door does say that, well, if you're press, if you have a press pass, then you might be allowed greater access. And that's true, but it's not the press pass. Again, James is dumb and he thinks it's the piece of paper that matters, but it's not. It's what that piece of paper represents. If that piece of paper is backed by a reputable news service. Like if James Freeman rolled up there with a Reuters or NBC pass, CNN pass, Fox pass, some credible news agency, then it's not the press pass that would get him in. It's the assurance that he is operating under an ethical standard. It's a good company that you're working for. You're less likely to abuse things because that company doesn't want you to prevent them from getting further press access. So they are going to make sure that you comply. And just having the press pass doesn't mean you're going to get to go in there and film at your heart's content. It means that they'll go in front of a judge, and the judge will determine when, where, why, and how you can film in that courtroom. Again, the goal is to protect the kids. James thinks he's uncovered something that he hasn't uncovered. He felt he needed to keep filming there because the courts have secrets, and he's exposing those secrets. And you know, some trials are open to the public. You're guaranteed a public trial under the Constitution in a criminal offense. And the courts have held that, yeah, you are guaranteed one unless for some other reason they need to not. So again, it's another one of those rules. It isn't black and white. There's some gray areas. And by public trial, it doesn't mean they have to allow popcorn in there. It doesn't mean they have to allow chewing gum. It doesn't mean they have to allow cameras. It means they have to allow the public. And amazingly enough, press attend those trials, and they do sketches. And people believe what they write because they're disinterested press. They're there to pass on the story. Is it going to be biased? Sure, but a camera's also going to be biased because it's going to be pointed at what the camera operator decided to point it at. It's not going to catch everything. It never does. So James Freeman is just being silly, and of course he leaves it with a threat. First of all, he thinks that they don't have reasonable suspicion that he's committed a crime, and they've told him multiple times he can't film in there, and he thinks that by holding the door open and filming inside that he is not filming in there or something. I don't know. But anyway, that's a good question of law that a judge could determine. I think the sheriff had reasonable suspicion. Anyway, he leaves with a threat that he's going to go and film in all the windows. But he didn't have time to film that day. He had other things to do, and they're lucky, right? They're just lucky they didn't have time to film in all the windows. And people wonder why we can't have nice things. James Freeman and people like him are the reason we can't have nice things. He demands the magic piece of paper. He gets handed the magic piece of paper. He doesn't understand the magic piece of paper, and therefore he disbelieves the magic piece of paper. What a retard. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope everybody has a great Cesar Chavez Day, whether or not you are in California. And we'll see you next time.